Hi everyone and welcome to the Learning Network. You're with Kell Bell. This bonus module takes us through essential literacy skills that are so important in community and family studies. This bonus course is for experienced CAFS teachers, newbie CAFS teachers, as well as CAFS students, but also teachers who are ready to take their CAFS crew to the very next level. Once you see these foundational skills that the students can use and demonstrate in practice, it's going to change those foundational aspects of your course. The students are going to be able to use these straight away from Year 11 and build on these skills all the way through to Year 12. These are highly essential skills that are going to move your students forward and gain success in community and family studies. Setting the foundation from the get-go is so important, and often we have this misconception that students know these skills already. But I'm going to take you through three main foundational skills that I believe are really essential in community and family studies. The first one is an approach to answering or breaking down questions, whether it be exam questions or assessment questions for our students. Breaking down each of these steps is really important, and we want our students to be able to practice that all the way through. And the students should be able to demonstrate consistent use of this approach throughout their HSC and prelim journey for CAFS. As well as this is having a really clear structure across your school and or faculty to paragraphing is really, really important. And obviously those paragraphs are going to look a little bit different for different questions, but that's completely okay. So sharing this structure with the students is highly important. Many of us use either PEAL, TEAL, SEXY, SEAL. There's lots of other different acronyms that we might use to structure a response, but I really think it's important to have that consistent approach either across your faculty, so the PDHPE or TAS faculty, or across your school, which would be highly beneficial for the kids to be able to transfer those skills. So if they're doing, say, PE and CAFS, you can then use that particular structure in that faculty. If they're doing CAFS and, say, food tech within a TAS faculty, then you're using that consistent approach. I believe that the most consistent approach is across a whole school approach to paragraphing. And lastly is in annotating responses. So using a scaffold to actually demonstrate skills in annotating a response. And I'm going to share with you guys a scaffold that I've used in the past to actually annotate responses. And obviously giving the students various opportunities for developing these skills. And of course, consistent feedback all the way through. So let's dive in. Once you see this impact and that consistent approach is going to have really big benefits on your students. Developing that clear structure is so important, and that consistent approach all the way through is going to be a game changer. And obviously, having those annotations regularly is going to set your students up for success. You're probably wondering what the significance of all of this is actually about, and why do we have a clear approach to assessment and examination questions? Let me show you how. These are the common grade scale and the performance descriptors for community and family studies. Of course, a common grade scale is consistent across all prelim courses, but you'll notice here that I've highlighted that students should be able to apply highly developed skills and processes in a variety of different contexts, as well as the ability to be able to effectively communicate complex ideas and information. This is so important in that particular A grade level to really show that consistency across their questions. Now, in terms of performance descriptors for CAFS, we can see here that the students should be able to propose, develop and sustain arguments, use examples to justify their opinion. And what I'm going to show you today is hopefully a stepping stone towards achieving these performance descriptors. The students also have to propose relevant strategies, so lots of different things in that, and as well as be able to communicate their ideas, issues and opinions in a really organised, logical and coherent manner. And that's the big one there. It needs to be organised. It needs to be logical. There needs to be some sort of structure to their response, and it needs to make sense. Of course, the students also need to use CAFS terminology as well. So it's not just about the content, guys. It's about having a clear structure and a clear approach, and then bringing it all together by annotating it to then have the students to be able to perform to the very, very best of their ability. And this is not just literacy skills for community and family studies in terms of Year 11 assessments, exam, Year 12 assessments, and then the HSC, but also for life. So this clear focus is so, so important. And I love talking about these three aspects. And once you guys see these, it's going to make so much more sense by using them in your classroom, embedding it, making it just part of your practice, and getting the students to be able to be familiar with all of these different things. So what does Run Far stand for? Run Far is an approach to exam questions or assessment questions that has been developed over time. This basically stemmed from quite a few different students' approaches early on in my career, and I had two beautiful students, Megan and Jess, and I taught them for PE this particular year. I think it was back in 2008, maybe even a bit earlier than that, but they were doing really well, and I started to watch their behaviours, watch their strategies, and they would break down all the different parts of their question, before they even started writing. And having that planning time in and around their response was one of those key strategies that I saw in them that were making them successful students. They would carry this particular approach all the way through their assessments, their exams, and also the HSC. These two particular girls got a Band 6 in both PDHPE and Community and Family Studies because they took the time. They had a clear structure to their responses, and they broke it down before they even got started. And I'm sure you're thinking that this might take too much time for the kids. Let me rest assure you, once the kids do this, they're going to have a clear structure for their response. They're also going to be really successful in being really concise. And we know now that in CAFS, our 8 markers, our 15 markers need that approach. All of our questions need an approach, but especially those higher order skills, those higher order glossary of keywords often need an approach. So let's have a look at each of these steps. So step 1 is for the students to read all parts of the question really, really carefully. And that's just simply going through the question. They're then going to underline syllabus content, maybe circle glossary of keywords, put a box or a bubble around common terms, put a squiggle or double underline for specific examples they might need to talk about. The next stage is getting them to actually note down any definitions that they might know about the syllabus, or possibly the glossary of keyword example or definition. The next step is to formulate a plan for students to answer using dot points, a mind map, a table, diagram in and around their response before they start writing. The next stage, so A, stands for answer the question using PEAL, TEAL, SEXY, whichever acronym you're going with, or structure, using the space provided as a guide. And then getting the students to read and review their response before they actually are completely finished with it. Let's have a look at each of these steps in a bit more detail. So as I mentioned, step 1 is getting the students to read all parts of the question. So reading the question in its entirety, often some students might miss out on key parts of the question once they rush it. Get them to read it word by word, and sometimes it's even maybe getting the students to think about the question and what it really means in their own words. And I've often had the students rewrite questions based on what they know in their own words. So this could even include like the glossary of keywords, how many marks it's worth, how many lines they've been given before they even get started. Step 2 is really about breaking down that question. And this does take a little bit of time, but once the kids get it, you're going to see them do this and practice this all the way through from year 11 to year 12 when they do the HSC for their grand finale. They're going to do this, and having this little structure is going to make so much more sense for the kids. So the syllabus needs to be identified. What part of the syllabus is this question really about? Is it about individuals and groups? Is it about families and communities? Is it about groups in context? Where from the syllabus has this question been taken? Often the kids also need to be thinking about the glossary of keyword that guides them. And I have a completely free training that I've set up for you guys on the glossary of keywords, because I think it's the biggest missing ingredient, as well as embedding wellbeing for students. Once the kids know what the glossary of keywords are, that then guides them in terms of how they're going to respond to that question. Each glossary of keyword is so, so important. So if you'd like to be part of that training, please let me know and I'll send you the link. So there could be 2 glossary of keywords included in a particular question, and that's completely okay. They might have identify the factors affecting wellbeing and explain the impact. So you have identify and explain. You might have propose and discuss. You might have justify and explain. It just depends. It's important for the kids to be aware that there could be 1 or 2 glossary of keywords that guide that. In terms of common terms, I'm talking about things like impact, relationship, strategies, contribute, explore, or influence, or having those different things that are often used in CAFS. So they're not particularly part of the syllabus, but they're common terms that the students might be needing to include in their response. In addition to this, we're really thinking about specific examples that are from that particular question. So it could be a question about a homeless person, or it could be a question about same-sex couple. It could be a question about a group in the community. It could be a question about aged individuals, youth, that sort of thing. Often, the students forget about that particular part, but that's where their really unique and varied examples come from. They really need to take the time to think about all the parts of their question. Often, if they fly through that, they're missing out on some marks. They really need to be focusing on all parts of the question, and that last little part is really important as well. Okay, now that we have step 2 underway, let's have a look at step 3. Now, step 3 is about noting down any definitions. So quickly jotting down some definition of syllabus terms. They might say WB equals, and then have a quick definition about wellbeing. Or they might have advocacy, and then they might use the acronym. So REP, raising awareness, educating people, and promoting the wellbeing of the group, or promoting their rights, that sort of thing. What they then might need to do is also provide some sort of guidance in terms of what the glossary of keyword actually is. So the glossary of keywords, as I mentioned before, are doing words, they're actionable, and that's how the students are going to set their answer up and then how they're going to answer it. They all have a particular function, and the kids really need to learn and practice applying them in lots of different ways. We can't just assume. Often there's so many assumptions with these. And starting the glossary of keywords from year 7, or even if you're in a K-12 school, from kindergarten is so important. It's one of my big ticket items. It's one of my recipes to success in CAFS, and I think we need to focus on it so much more. So the students need to be able to jot down the definition of those words, but also other words or other meta-language that they might use to show or demonstrate understanding of that word. What I'm talking about here is like explain. They might write down explain equals cause and effect, or explain ... cause and effect. They then might say this impacts on. These are some other phrases that they can show and prove to the HSC marker or to you as the marker that they're actually doing that particular word. They're actually doing what the glossary of keyword tells them to do. You might have something like assess or evaluate. This is a judgment, we know that. Judgment words might be this is highly effective, or this is significant, or this is detrimental. So you're having some sort of word to prove to the markers, either HSC markers or you as their class teacher or other teachers of CAFS who are marking their work, that they're actually doing that particular word. Again, I have a free training for you guys on this, so please head over to my website or shoot me an email for more details. Okay, step 4 is about formulating the plan. having a little plan of attack before they even put pen to paper. This could take 30 seconds to a minute, in and around the question, in the margin possibly, lots of little arrows. Doing this first is one of those key skills. Those 2 students I spoke about and subsequent students after that, they all did this. They all made this little step before they put pen to paper, especially for unseen questions and especially for exam type questions. I'm talking in-class assessments, possibly exams for year 11 end of course exams, or the grand final, which is a HSC. So getting the kids to have a plan of attack first before they start writing, before they write in the lines, is so important. Step five is actually answering the question using some sort of structure. So I like to use Peel. I'm PE background, so I use PE in the Peel, but that's just my thing. You might have a totally different way. So if you're in the TAS faculty, you might have T for TAS. I don't know, whatever acronym you're using, whatever structure you're using, they're all pretty much the same thing. There's some sort of clear structure of how the students are going to answer their question. So short answer questions typically have really brief topic sentences and a really brief link. It might be something that might be just a very short topic sentence and a very short link. Of course, when we have a look at something like our options, so part C, or possibly even an 8-marker, we might have a bit more structure in terms of what that topic sentence and link might look like. Of course, if the students are running out of time or space, they might use a line or indent between each paragraph to separate their ideas, just to indicate to the marker that they're actually having separate ideas. That really cohesive and logical response is demonstrated there. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for our students demonstrating those skills that are typically at an A level for the common grade scale or for a band 6 in community and family studies. Okay, step 6, pretty straightforward, but getting the kids to go back and actually review and read their answer, making sure they've answered all parts of the question. And if they haven't, it's okay. They can add little ideas along the way. Make sure they've actually answered each part, double checking for accuracy, for all the little bits, especially those examples. Often we might have students miss those examples. Any other ideas that they can think of, jot it in, put it into their answer, and then just make sure everything's there and they're good to go. So being really strategic here is so important. The kids have to have a strategy or an approach to their exam questions. They can't just go hell for leather and start answering them. They need to break them down first before they actually put pen to paper. I want you guys to share this with the students. I want you to show them what it looks like in this run far model. And let me tell you, I've taught this for a really long time now. This is probably about my 10th year of teaching run far. And the kids get better and better at it all the way through. They might then come up with their own little system, but getting them to have some sort of approach first, this is the first step. You really need to be strategic about it. Breaking down each step with the kids, demonstrating what it takes. Of course, you might print off what acronym and what each of the steps might be for run far, and then having that in and around your room. Whatever it is, getting the kids to actually demonstrate what it takes, you demonstrating it, you modeling it, and then them practicing it. They will have so much more success. They'll feel super, super confident to approach questions rather than being freaked out by them, but having this approach on paper, ready to go before they put pen to paper. Hopefully this focus is really clear and the students will see it as a really great way to get started first before they put pen to paper on their answers, in and around their responses. Let's get them to have a little structure, a little approach before they start actually answering their question. Once you do this with the kids, they will absolutely fly. You'll see it. You'll be so proud of the way they do this, and it will be so much more successful for them rather than just getting straight into it. They have this approach first. Okay, let's have a look at the next strategy. The next strategy that I like to use, as I mentioned before, is Peel. And Peel is a paragraphing structure of how the students are going to answer their question. So PEEL basically stands for point, elaboration, evidence, and link. In each of their paragraphs, they're going to show these parts. So point is about stating their meaning, elaboration is kind of going on from that and then providing a bit more detail about that point. Evidence is obviously backing it up, providing evidence that you actually understand that content. And then linking it is some sort of link or transition from their last point to their next point, linking it back to their answer or the question, or in terms of part C in our option, linking it to wellbeing where appropriate. Let's dive into each of these steps. So I'm going to teach you this with an example or a sample answer. So we have our point. State your main point or topic sentence. Our question is, describe the factors that affect wellbeing. Something from Year 11 course, obviously would then filter in Year 12, but a bit higher order or more related to our option, or maybe the wellbeing of dependents, carers, whatever it might be. But let's just use this as an example. So our topic sentence might sound something like this. The factors that affect an individual's well-being include social, physical, emotional, economic, cultural, and spiritual. It is the balance of all of these that contributes to an individual's overall well-being. You could rewrite that in lots of different ways, but it's just something as a starting point. The marker knows that the student has an approach. They're ready to go. This is their main point. Let's dive into elaboration. So elaboration is providing an elaboration or extending on their main point, how and why it supports their main point. Let's look at our example. So social well-being is associated with the interactions an individual has with others. So I'm showing the marker content about the syllabus, whereas an individual's physical well-being pertains to their body, such as diet, physical activity, and sleep. So we've got some examples already sneaking in there. Another characteristic of well-being includes emotional aspects, which relate to feelings and mental health aspects of an individual's life. Economic well-being also affects an individual's well-being and includes things like budgeting, financial planning, spending, and employment. An additional factor, so you're kind of adding to that, an additional factor that affects well-being includes cultural and refers to things such as an individual's religion and customs. Finally, spiritual aspects refer to those parts of an person's life which are associated with beliefs, connections, and values. So you're just providing an elaboration on that main point, that these are all the different parts of wellbeing. So here's a particular example. There were some examples in that particular part, but this particular example provides clear evidence to the marker they really know what they're talking about. So an example of this could be when a young person is engaging in risk-taking behaviours and not eating a balanced diet. Their emotional well-being could also be impacted as they are not feeling confident or positive about their life choices. These behaviours may also lead to the young person refraining from interacting socially with their friends. So you're showing that interaction or interrelationship between well-being, and it's just that evidence to really bring it together to say, here's what I really know. Finally, that link creates a transition to your next point or from your last point, or brings all those points together. So you could say something like this: it is evident that the factors are completely interrelated, and when one aspect is affected, the other aspects can impact on an individual's overall well-being. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It's not a conclusion, it's something very, very brief. We're talking half a sentence to a sentence, just bring all those ideas together. So in terms of a response and what it might look like, we need to be thinking about what type of glossary of keyword really guides the kids. So what we might start to do is have that consistent approach. We need to have a clear paragraphing structure, but it might look differently for different glossary of keywords. For example, in an outline, we may not actually have our point. We might just get straight to the point and have no link. We might just have providing an elaboration, so providing some sort of point, then elaboration straight away with their example for outline, because outline might only be worth 3 to 4 marks, that sort of thing. When we go to describe, we might go, okay, well, let's extend on that a little bit. When we go to explain, we might have a couple of different ways or a couple of different PEEL paragraphs about explaining something, because it might be a 6 or 7 or 5 marker. When we start to move up the glossary of keywords, and if you're alarm matrix person, you would know that this progression happens. But if we're looking at something like assess, we might then have a number of different peel paragraphs, and immersed into that, we would have clear evidence that we're actually doing that glossary of keyword. Again, if it's our option, so if it's in part B and C, we would have probably a number of different peel paragraphs. We could possibly have 2 peel paragraphs or 3 peel paragraphs in our 6 marker, so part B for our option. And then in the big one, and this is a huge thing, I think, is having multiple numbers of peel paragraphs in our answer with a clear introduction and a clear conclusion. I've got a really good scaffold for you guys on that. If you would like to reach out to me, please head over to kelly@thelearnnet.com and shoot me an email, and I can give you access to that particular scaffold. So once we have this clear approach to our paragraphs, the students are going to be able to see that consistency, and having that consistent approach across school or across faculty is highly important. We don't want to confuse the kids. We want to have that clear structure there. Then modeling the structure for the kids, demonstrating it, modeling it, showing them what it looks like is so, so important. We can't assume that they know what a paragraph looks like. Yes, they've done English. Yes, they've been in primary school. Yes, they've done 7 to 10, but we need to model it. And guys, I really want you to model it from the beginning. If you are in a 7 to 12 school, model it from year 7. If you're not, and if you're in your senior school, you also need to start from the beginning. This might take you 3 to 4 weeks to get it right, to get all these little bits together. But once you do it, the kids are going to have so much more success because the answers are logical, they're clear, they're cohesive. We want them to be able to be really clear about their responses. So having that practice all the way through, maybe starting out, if we're starting in year 11, starting out, at a question about well-being, all those little parts of well-being, and then giving the kids feedback on that. Then we might go, okay, well, that's one concept. Let's have a look at maybe a higher order concept, or bring 2 concepts together. You might then look at a question about resources and how it impacts on wellbeing, or something like that. So then working out how the kids might then structure a response for that. But the biggest skill here is giving the kids feedback. They don't know what they don't know. So having that clear feedback for them and showing them a way forward is so crucial. And it might take time, and you might need lots of highlighters and lots of Post-it notes and lots of summaries and lots of scaffolding on the board. But once it's clear, the kids are going to have so much more success. They need a direction. They're students. They're 15, 16, 17, even our youngest students in year 7 to 10. We need to have that clear direction for them. And I'm such an advocate for this. And I think in schools, we often forget about having this really clear structure. We say, oh, we're doing peel paragraphs, but are we actually teaching it to the kids? Are we being explicit with our teaching? And are we modeling it and showing them the way? They need a clear direction. They're coming to us for that clear direction. Let's really scaffold it. It's a missing ingredient, I believe. We need to have this in our classes all the time. Our English teachers are not just the teachers who should be teaching this. It's our responsibility to teach these literacy skills all the way from year 7 through to year 12. It's really, really important. The kids need this clear structure, not just for now, but for the future. Once they get into university, or once they go out in their real world, or once they have to write a letter to somebody, or once they have to do an application for a building inspection at their home when they're older. Whatever examples you want to think of, but it's so important to have this clear direction with the kids, so you're setting them up for success. Alrighty, let's have a look at the final stage. And the final skill or structure is what I call glue. And glue has looked lots of different things in the past, but glue is a way that I've hopefully brought all of these ideas together to annotate an exam question or an assessment question. So glue is about all the parts that are required of a question, of an answer, I should say, and how they all bring and come together. So glue is really about all those little bits, all those parts of a question that are necessary to bring and to glue that answer together. So students need to develop these skills from the beginning, and having strong responses that really clearly show each of the parts of their answer is really important. And I've often used highlighters, post-it notes, coloured highlighters, coloured felt tip pens, magnets on the board, all those sorts of things to do this. I've done it in pairs, I've done it individually, I've annotated responses, but also the biggest one is about the students giving feedback to each other. So let's have a look at what GLUE stands for. GLUE stands for the glossary of keyword being in there. That's a crucial part of their answers. Again, as I said, missing ingredient. A link to the question is also a part of GLUE. Understanding of the syllabus, knowledge, all those sorts of things. And examples really need to be in a response. All these bits, all these 4 bits, really bring an answer together. Yes, it's got the structure, but these are all the bits that are in that particular structure. So the G stands for glossary of keyword, and the kids need to use lots of different words, so meta language, to demonstrate understanding of the glossary of keyword or keywords that are in a particular answer. Again, I'll say it again, missing ingredient. The kids need to focus on this. We need to spend a long time building the kids up from the beginning with this particular strategy, breaking down each of the glossary of keywords, knowing what they are and what are some words to demonstrate understanding of each of those glossary of keywords. Again, I've got a few scaffolds for you guys, some goodies that I'd love to share with you. If you want to reach out, I'd love to be able to share those with you, or what this might look like in your classroom. Okay, so when we're actually going to annotate, I often use green as anywhere in the response have they actually addressed that glossary of keyword. So if it's an explain question, I might try to find words that might say this impacts on, or this creates, or this results in, or this leads to. They're all different words to show and to prove to the marker that they're actually doing that word. So I'd highlight those in green to show and to prove to the kids, or obviously they would prove to themselves or their peers that they've actually included that. If it's not in there, it means they haven't actually done the glossary of keyword. So this is one little part that would bring the answer together. Let's have a look at the next one. So the link is really looking for the link back to the concepts or back to examples. So having the kids to do this is so important. And often I think kids get really good at the syllabus content. They might not then link it back to what's being asked in the question. So for example, it might be a question about sampling. I'm talking about Year 12 research methodology. It might be about a question about sampling, sampling in a community group and what that might look like, what particular sampling methods they might use, whatever it is. If they don't talk about that community group or that community, then they're not going to be able to get those full marks. So really what this part of it is looking for those links back to the concepts, so back to the syllabus concepts and back to the examples that are possibly in the question. It could even be a question about the parenting styles of a first-time parent. So you need to address that first-time parent part. Often that's missing. The kids just talk about the parenting styles without actually linking it back to the example that's in the question. Okay, so pink and link. Once they've done this throughout their answer, you're going to highlight it in pink. So anything of where they've actually linked back to the question, back to the examples in the question, the kids are going to highlight their answer, or you're going to show them what it looks like in an exemplar in the pink highlighter, pink felt tip pen, whatever it is, pink post-it notes, but this is a link back to the question. Okay, let's look at the U. So U looks at knowledge and understanding. This is more the syllabus content. Where have the students actually addressed syllabus content, knowledge and understanding? So we're going to use orange as our highlighter colour, and we're going to look through the student's response or look through your exemplar or your modelling answer And where have we actually addressed the knowledge and understanding of the course content? Highlight that in orange, and that's really about the content of the question. It's not the link, it's not the glossary of keyword, it's about the content. So this should really make up a fair amount of their answer, but if they haven't done enough of it, of course it's not going to be extensive. Of course it's not going to be thorough enough. They need to really be looking at what sort of knowledge and understanding they're demonstrating. Okay, finally, it's about the examples. And I believe the examples and probably the glossary of keywords are the biggest ones. Showing clear evidence and examples in their response is often a missing ingredient. The kids will just have a really rough go. They'll just talk about the syllabus or throw a definition in there, but they might not really have a clear structure to their examples or to their evidence. Their evidence might be really lacking. So we're going to highlight any evidence of understanding or any examples that are actually in their response in yellow. So wherever they've actually shown you that they understand what they're talking about, or they've got an example or a situation or a case study or a scenario, we're going to highlight that in yellow, and we should see really lots of yellow in a student's response. So let's recap. We want this strategy to be really purposeful, to be actionable. We want the kids to be able to practice this. They really need to know what makes up a response and all the bits that glue it together. So we're going to model this first. We're going to model this for the students in Year 11 and show them what it looks like, and even introducing glue and annotations all the way back to Year 7. Having that really clear structure and annotations is really important. The kids are going to practice this lots of times, and I want you guys to start from Year 11. Don't wait until they're in Year 12 and it's a bit more competitive and they start freaking out about the HSC. Let's start from Year 11 so the kids are really confident, the kids are really comfortable with annotating their responses. I'm not just talking about their own responses, I'm talking about each other's responses. Because, let's face it, your students in terms of HSC, results, that sort of thing, they're not against each other, they're against the state. So the kids need to work together, you as their coach, them as the team players or team members, to work together as a team to improve their knowledge, understanding, and skills. This is one of those skills. The kids need to have all those bits in their answer to glue it all together to make a really good response. And I really think we need to focus on this with the kids, really get them out of their comfort zone if they're not already, but really break down those barriers about comparing each other's responses. Let's actually build on each other's responses and work together as a team, because they're against the state. They're not against each other. They need to work as a team to build on their results, to build on their improvement, and to build on their knowledge and understanding and skills. So making it really purposeful and actionable here is really important. So I believe these 3 ideas are really part of the ingredients to success in community and family studies. And these aren't just anecdotal things. These are things that I've seen over the last 16 years as a CAFS teacher, marking lots of different responses, marking assessments, marking examinations for schools, that sort of thing, presenting this sort of thing across New South Wales. But these are often the missing ingredients. Let's really build on them and develop them a bit further. We have a really big opportunity here. We have an opportunity to share this with the students, to really break it down and make it sense for them, make it make sense. I think too often we assume that they know what these things are, but let's make it part of our practice. Showing them lots of different examples, and we can get examples from lots of places. We can get examples from past exam questions, past work samples. So we have to collect work samples as part of our registration process. So let's keep those work samples and let's use them for the students' benefit as well, possibly making each of them non-identifiable or seeking permission from your students if you do want to share a response, but just blacking out the student's name, a past student's name, and being able to show these examples to the students is really highly beneficial. Using past HSC questions or the NESA booklets that they come out with particular, I think 2015, 17, have exam questions and exemplar responses. So getting the kids to really break those down, photocopying those and using glue and annotating them might be a really great way to use those. You might also use parts of the Cambridge Checkpoints HSC for CAFS that Kate Rayner and I have authored. You might use that and responses from there to get the student to really highlight and to break down those answers and to annotate them and to look for those parts. So using lots of exemplars and sharing them and collecting them is really important. Again, it all comes back to practice. Practice, practice, practice. Making it part of your classroom, making it part of just what you do in CAFS. So firing things, having a clear peel structure, and then gluing it all together by annotating is really important. And you'll come out of the other end and see this magic that happens with the kids. Guys, I think we often forget about these crucial literacy skills. We need to develop these and build these with our students because we want them to be really successful, because we want them to have a clear approach, because we want them to be really concise. But if we show them the way, it's going to be amazing. So these are my 3 big challenges. Again, I think we assume too much. We assume that the kids know what this is. Often we also forget about it. We forget to use these consistent structures and approaches all the way through. So I think consistency here is the key. And of course, you're going to say to me, time. When do I get time to do this, Kelly? When do I get time to embed these practices? But please have a go. Once you start from the beginning and start from year 11 and even year 7 or further on that, if you're in a K-12 school, it's going to pay off. It's going to make so much more sense. So in year 11, let's talk in year 11, it might take you 3 to 4 weeks to really build these practices in your classroom. Once they know them, once you show them the way, the kids are going to fly. They're going to have so much more success. And that's typically what happens. If you haven't used these structures in your 7 to 10 classroom, it may take you 3 to 4 weeks. If you start from the beginning, start from year 7, you're going to have so much more success in the long run in year 11 and 12. Don't leave it to the last minute though. Okay, so 3 big strategies: clear approach, using run far; consistent structure, using peel, teal, sexy, seal; and continued feedback, continued annotations of responses so the kids really know what it takes to bring all those answers together, to glue all those good answers together. Guys, you'll see a massive shift in your students, and I've been able to really feel confident and proud of my students once they see that shift, that transition that they make. Once you start sharing some of these skills with them, it's going to make life so much easier for them when they answer a question, but also they're going to be able to really prove and show to the marker that they really know their stuff. They've got a really clear approach, really clear structure, and they've also been able to bring all the bits together. I love feedback, and I think we need to do more of it. Our kids will thrive on it. It's not just you giving all the feedback, it's making the kids accountable and giving that power back to the kids, making them accountable from the beginning, and also giving themselves feedback for their own responses, but also feedback to their peers' responses. So if you had the time, what would you do differently? What would you change the way you approach community and family studies, or possibly even 7 to 10 PE or 7 to 10 technology? What would you do differently with your kids? Okay, so this is a quick pathway that we've gone through. An approach to exam or assessment questions from the beginning. So introducing run far to the kids right from the get-go, practicing using run far consistently with every question, not just exam time, but assessment time too. Really having that step for consistent paragraphing structure. So there's a really clear approach. The kids know what it is. You're then going to model that clear structure. So demonstrating what peel looks like for the kids, and then the kids actually proving to you that they understand it. So then them demonstrating what their structure is. Of course, you then will be annotating responses. The kids would practice their responses, possible annotation of sample responses, either from past students or from each other, or peer-to-peer responses, team responses, whatever it might be. But the students need to see all the different parts that glue an answer together. And of course, feedback, feedback, feedback. Constant check for understanding, knowledge and skills all the way through, not just come exam time, not just come assessment time, but in class with formative assessment checkpoints is really important for the kids. Guys, I want you to think about what this difference might make to your students. What changes could you see with your students if you have an approach like this? If you embed these 3 key strategies, what difference would it make to the kids? To their results, to their performance, and also to their literacy skills now and also in the future. So, 3 big challenges. Let's not assume it. Consistency is the key. We need to keep up this practice, but we also need to make time and embed time into our teaching and learning to do this. The process: run far, peel, teal sexy, whatever acronym you're using, gluing it all together, annotating a response, and the kids practicing all these parts and seeking feedback from themselves, from each other, and of course you as their teacher. Guys, if you have any questions about any of this, about run far, what it might look like, about peel or what peel might look like in different responses, about glue and what a sample might look like, please reach out to me. You can join the community by following along, joining my website, so thelearnnet.com, coming across on Facebook with the LearnNet Network, and then the LearnNet on Instagram. I also have a free community group, free page, a Facebook group for community and family studies teachers that I'd love for you to be part of. But you can also reach out to me at kelly@thelearnnet.com if you have any questions, any ideas, anything else that you would like me to cover. Guys, thank you so much for joining me in this bonus course. I really hope it's been useful. Please let me know what you thought.